Even if I had in my possession the one thing that people needed more than they needed anything else, without some kind of delivery system to take this to them, what good would it be? The gospel is the best news humanity could ever hear. Simply put, people need Jesus more than they need anything. But as great as that message is, it still required a delivery platform, and the one God designed is framed in the Great Commission. The vehicle that God strategically designed to bring the message of redemption to all of humankind is the church. But research tells us that only a small fraction of Americans regularly attend one. That would be a problem. Or is it? Church leaders have been attempting to invent solutions to this problem for decades. But as you are going to learn, you can't solve a problem unless you understand the problem. While research tells us that less than 20% of Americans will attend a worship service in a church facility on any given weekend, you are going to learn that incredibly, 100% of the people in this country still attend church regularly. In fact, not only do 100% of Americans attend church, 95% of all of us came to embrace the gospel because someone leveraged that reality. Tom is going to explain that in detail, how you can laser focus on the formula that brought 95% of all believers to Christ.
The city of Choluteca is located on the Pan American Highway in Honduras. In 1998, Hurricane Mitch devastated that entire region. When the water finally subsided, the Choluteca River had formed a new riverbed running right next to the bridge that had been originally constructed to span it. The storm spared the bridge itself, but the connecting roads were destroyed, which rendered the bridge useless. No matter its beauty, without a river running under it, any bridge would quickly become an object of ridicule. Post-Mitch, the Cholutecans had a problem. They had an irrelevant bridge on their hands. Now, two strategies were proposed to make it relevant again. Determined engineers wanted to redirect the flow so it would flow as it did before Mitch blew into Honduras. Others thought it would be best to simply extend the bridge over the new riverbed. So what should it be? Redirect the flow or extend the bridge? Well, now decades later, neither has happened. Like the Cholutecans, we've got a problem on our hands. The church's voice in our culture has become increasingly muted. The communities we want to reach have changed. Our neighbors drive by our church buildings, but they don't stop. Once respected and engaged, most local churches now stand as monuments to the past, irrelevant and ridiculed. Toward the end of the last century, two strategies were proposed to make it relevant again. One strategy focused on redirecting the culture back to what it was before the winds of relativity and liberalism blew into our society. That strategy is being pushed by determined Christian legislators who work tirelessly in the political arena on our behalf. The second strategy challenged us to extend our vision through more leadership development, innovative programming, which continue to be the dominant themes at most of our regional and national church leadership conferences. So what should it be? Redirect the flow or extend the bridge? Well, decades later, both strategies still active, but neither seems to be working. After everything we've invested in politics and leadership, we continue to struggle to get the world to come into our churches. Rebecca Barnes and Lindy Lowry recently gave us an up-close look at church attendance in America, and they reported that less than 20% of Americans regularly attend church, half of what the pollsters report. Among others, they cite respected sociologists C. Kirk Hathaway and Penny Long Marler, whose research indicates that the actual number of people worshiping each week closer to 20% instead of the 40% we thought were coming, which was a number based on older, well-circulated poll numbers. The discrepancy has been attributed to what pollsters call the halo effect, which causes people to answer poll questions influenced by what they think they should be doing, not on what they're actually doing. But the bottom line is this: if our goal is to fill our church buildings, we're doing even worse than we thought. You can't solve a problem until you understand the problem, and maybe we're trying to solve the wrong problem. Should we be trying to fill a church, or should we be working to change the world? We might want the communities we live in to come into the churches we lead, but is that really our primary objective? Or even the metrics we should be using in evaluating the success of our movement? In the New Testament, the English word church comes from the Greek word ekklessia, and it refers to a group of people. But actually, our word church is derived from the ancient German kirka, which designates a location. Now, I'm not suggesting we change the word we use to describe the groups we lead. Maybe we just need to remind ourselves that the Great Commission was not given to the unchurched, it was given to us. Evidently, church buildings aren't supposed to be landing strips. They're supposed to be launch sites. Jesus never challenged the world to come into a really cool building, a kirka. He challenged your church, the ekklessia, to go into a really lost world. And that's the amazing thing about your church family. They don't have to go into that really lost world because they're already there. Not only have we been trying to solve the wrong problem, the right problem has already been half solved. Now, I have no argument with either the 40% pollsters or their less optimistic counterpart. I just think their research is reinforcing our focus on the wrong issue. I'd suggest that virtually 100% of the people in this country attend church, because church is not a place they could go. Church is people they already know. So the people who live in your community and don't yet know what a personal relationship with God looks like, and will not be attending a worship service in your church building or my church building this weekend, well, those people will still have the chance to see the power of Jesus demonstrated every workday, every school day, every single day this week. You might not be on the stage they're watching, but your church family will be. Jesus has already platformed them throughout your community. You know, conversions to Christ generally require at least one important conversation. And no important conversation has ever taken place without at least two people's permission. As the one who designed the relational universe, Jesus knew that kind of permission would most likely be granted by people you already know: parents, siblings, neighbors, coworkers, classmates, or other friends. The Greeks called that group an oikos, or an extended family. From the very beginning of the human story, the oikos principle has been part of our hardwiring. Regardless of our age or gender, our generation, our culture, our ethnicity, or even our spiritual tradition, everyone has an oikos. Consisting of anywhere from 8 to 15 people, God has supernaturally and strategically placed each of them in our lives. Virtually all of us who follow Jesus, probably including you, and certainly including me, we made our decision to follow Christ through a personal relationship with one or more believers. These believers either demonstrated faith to us or answered our questions, or most likely, both. But during the week, probably over the course of many weeks, but not necessarily at church on a weekend. People may have prayed a prayer for salvation at a weekend church service where I was preaching, but that was just the consummation of a process. I didn't lead them to Christ. I just prayed a prayer with them in a worship service. Someone else led them there. The heavy lifting had already been done by one or more faithful believers who the converts had known for a while. Now, just to be clear about why I choose to elevate the oikos principle, let me recap. The church is better resourced today than ever, by a lot. Just walk into a Christian bookstore convention with its exhibition hall after exhibition hall, aisle after aisle, kiosk after kiosk. Just go online to Christian resource websites and view countless videos and workbooks and curricula. I mean, billions of dollars and the most innovative minds in the world at our backs, and yet we're still steadily losing ground. Even with all of the church's emphasis on leadership and preaching and vision over the past 40 years, we can still only get 2 out of every 10 Americans to come into a building and listen to people like you and me talk once a week. And yet 10 out of 10 Americans are interacting with the people who attend our churches on a daily basis. I just think that reality should affect our strategy to change the world. Now, that's certainly not to say that our weekend services are not important, but if church services are not focused on the church's mission, then how can we even boast relevance?